on our autoclave. So let's advance to where we left off last time, diving into the advanced issues. I want to go into a little more detail about what happens during a run or a cycle. Each autoclave run is referred to as a cycle, and each cycle is further subdivided into phases. We talked about the error message too long in phase. The autoclave controls will allow a certain amount of time for each cycle, but will also allow extra time if a phase is operating slowly. So if the steam pressure is low, a phase might take a little longer than expected. Now, when these variations appear, they are factored into the total runtime that is displayed on the panel. As each individual phase within a run is progressing, the countdown for both that phase and the total estimated runtime will be displayed on the screen. The first phase of the cycle is the jacket charge. Now, the autoclave sterilization chamber is surrounded by a hollow jacket. This space is filled with steam until the temperature is 1 degree less than the programmed sterilization temperature. And this arrangement gives us a very high, a very good temperature stability in the sterilization chamber. We are emitting steam into the jacket. We are not emitting steam into the sterilization chamber. The actual sterilization does not begin until after the jacket is fully charged and its temperature is stable. So here is a picture of the actual autoclave behind those stainless steel panels. You'll notice that there's a steam line entering the jacket, which is surrounded by an insulating blanket. And just to drive the point home that the jacket charge is charging only the jacket and not the sterilization chamber, I have a picture of these two steam gauges. You'll notice that the jacket steam charge is up around 20 pounds per square inch, but the sterilization chamber pressure is around 0. The longest phase in the cycle is the jacket stabilize. It's programmed in this instance to last about an hour. Now, this very long stabilization time is designed so that our media in particular is brought up to temperature very slowly, which can be useful or can be important for certain types of media. The jacket stabilize phase is also very important because the jacket is used for temperature stability. So if the jacket is not stable, then the autoclave sterilization chamber temperature will not be stable either. Now, during the jacket charge and the jacket stabilize phases, a pump will be running to remove any condensation, and this may produce a rather loud gurgling noise, and there are going to be snapping sounds as valves open and close that are allowing steam into the jacket to maintain its temperature or the necessary pressure. Don't be startled by this very loud clicking noise that these valves are making. Now we're almost ready to begin admitting steam into the sterilization chamber, and that begins with the activate seal phase. Now, steam is admitted into a sort of a bladder in the door that causes it to expand tight against the door and form an airtight seal. Now, notice that we haven't started heating up our chamber yet. And now in the purge phase, we admit steam into the chamber for the first time. The purpose, as the name implies, is to purge the sterilization chamber. And you'll note that both the temperature and the pressure are going up. Now, to see what's actually happening with your load temperature, you can press the display sensors button. You may find that the load is still considerably cooler than the average temperature of the chamber. And the average temperature of the chamber would be this temperature right here. During the charge phase, steam is admitted into the chamber until the sterilization temperature is reached. And the chamber has now reached the set point and the sterilization phase is going to start. In this particular example, it is programmed for 20 minutes. Now the load temperature may lag behind the chamber temperature for a few minutes. This is because water has a very high heat capacity and it takes time to warm up. So to see the actual load temperature, you're going to press the display sensors button. This chart shows the chamber and load temperature. The chamber temperature is the blue line on top. You'll note that it is very stable thanks to our jacket charge. But the actual load temperature, the temperature of the water in the flask that's being sterilized, takes a little bit longer to come up to the correct sterilization temperature. Now, the load also takes a little longer to cool, so it will remain at the sterilization temperature during the next few phases. And now we're on the downhill side of the run, and that begins with the slow exhaust. And that returns the chamber to 0 psig. And what is a psig? PSI, of course, stands for pounds per square inch. But the pounds per square inch that are displayed on the gauge is the PSIG, or pounds per square inch gauge. You all know that the temperature of the atmosphere, you all know that the pressure of the atmosphere is 14 pounds per square inch. So that value is automatically subtracted from the value that is displayed on the gauge, or 0 psi gauge is equal to 14 psi. The automatic controls will have a second exhaust phase depending on the target pressure. Now, if the projected cycle completion time stops counting down, remember to press the display sensors button and see what's actually happening during this phase. During the slow evacuate, we create a vacuum in the sterilization chamber. And during the retract seal phase, the unsealing process begins, but the chamber is still going to be hot. Vapor removal. Remember, we have created a vacuum in the sterilization chamber. So we've sucked out any residual steam, we've sucked out any fumes, any bad smells maybe from something that got hot. But now we have to let air back into the sterilization chamber, and we do that by using the vapor removal phase, when we admit a small amount of filtered air back into the sterilization chamber to bring it back to atmospheric pressure. Steam is also exhausted from the door seal, so there may be a small amount of steam leaking out of the chamber door, and if this happens, remember to wipe up any condensation from the floor. This graph shows the chamber temperature dropping as the vapor removal process is proceeding, and I included it as a reminder that even though the steam has been evacuated from the chamber is still hot. So when you if we were to open the door at this point and reach in to grab our load, it would be roughly 65 degrees centigrade, pretty hot. And when the cycle is complete, you'll get a message that the door is safe to open. So let's put it all together and look at what happens to the chamber temperature during the run. Now look at the jacket stabilize phase of the run. Remember, at this point, we have not admitted any steam into the sterilization chamber. We only want the chamber temperature to be stable when we do admit the steam during the purge and the charge phase. At that point, when the charge phase is complete, we are at our sterilization temperature. And when we reach the end of our sterilization cycle, which in this case is 20 minutes, then we begin to get into the slow exhaust and the slow evacuate cycles to bring the temperature back to close to normal and bring the pressure inside the autoclave back to atmospheric. There's one more thing before we close this video, and that is to thank Kevin Fagan, creator of the Drabble comic strip, and the creator of Wally the Dachshund, who has provided us with such great illustrations during this training. Thank you so very much for sitting through this training refresher. Please remember all of the safety rules, and if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask.